Well, good morning and welcome to the Grow Omaha Show, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center, along with D&M Roofing and Siding. My name is Jeff Beals, proud to be your co-host. And this is the only show you're going to find in the metro area that talks about business, construction, economic development, restaurant and retail news, anything really about Omaha becoming more vibrant, a little bit bigger, and certainly more prosperous. Without any further ado, it's time to bring on my co-host, a man who is legendary as a real estate deal maker, Trenton Magid.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Jeff.
Well, good morning to you. It's an exciting time in Omaha, middle of the fall. The leaves are changing, and when you drive around, folks, and do your Grow Omaha tours, everything looks really nice right now. It's a good time to be here.
Absolutely, and we missed you last week. I had Dave Fanslaw, who's the Omaha Planning Director, and also he is a member of the Papillion City Council.
Oh, how'd you do?
He did a lot better than I did, but I held my own, and we talked about a lot of topics.
Well, the building's still here, and the FCC license is still in place, so it couldn't have been too bad, and I appreciate you filling in.
The inquiry is still pending.
Hey, you know, a lot of people have still not been to the two new parks which opened downtown this summer, Lewis and Clark Landing and the brand new Heartland of America Park. And so, you know, this time of year when the weather's nice and the leaves are changing, if you haven't been down there, good time to do that. I can tell you, Trenton, a couple weeks ago, I was walking through the park on a Saturday. I was down there with my daughter, and we just kind of spent about 2 hours just walking around downtown, had lunch, mostly just hung out in the parks, and they were so active and so alive. It was almost kind of like going to the zoo or an amusement park or something like that. It was great to see. And I think the people who made the donations for those parks and the people who designed them, my guess is that's kind of what they dreamed about when they were putting the two parks together.
There's no question about it. And the thing that's unique about the Riverfront Park, which is a combination of three parks, is you have the same energy as those attractions like the zoo, and you have workers cleaning up. They'll be walking through and with uniforms on, and I think when people see that, they pick up after themselves as well, and they really maintain it, and I hope it stays that way.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference because other city parks just simply don't have that, and it certainly makes those downtown parks stand out and be special. And my guess is they will contribute a great deal to quite a bit of real estate construction over the coming years as more and more people want to live, work, and be entertained in, around, and near those parks. Well, Trenton, let's go into our news of the week, which is always brought to you by Eagle Mortgage. EagleMortgageCompany.com is where you can find them online. 114th and Davenport is the office, but they're all into the mortgage game, have been for well over 30 years. So if you're thinking about buying a new house, you want to talk to them first right off the bat. They can shop around and compare a lot of different banks. Are not beholden to just one. And so they can find the best solution for their borrowers. FHA, VA, conventional loans. They do all that and do a great job of it, and are very customer focused. EagleMortgageCompany.com. Well, Trenton, you were involved years ago selling land in La Vista's Southport East area that eventually became this amazing multi-sports complex. And they have been calling it, for the time being, the last couple of years, the Nebraska Multi-Sports Complex. Now it has a new name, CHI Health Multi-Sport Complex Nebraska. Long, but it has a nice ring to it.
Yeah, and I just hope that people don't try to go to the Adam Sandler concert in December and end up at the multi-sport complex in La Vista.
And don't go to the soccer fields if it's an emergency.
Yeah, exactly. So it's great, and I'm sure that they paid a pretty penny for it. And what that does, and it's been about 8 years, Jeff, since I sold about 300 acres to the folks that took the risk, the initial risk, and they've got partners. And it took a while to get going. I've done a ton of projects in that Southport area, which is right next to it, and it's beautiful. They've got a ton of turf fields over there now, a ton of parking, and I've got a couple lots. I'm actually working with a client that might take 10 take them both. I've got one under contract, and I've been involved with the Southport area at least since 2003, and developed some stuff over there, involved with about 4 or 5 different client groups, and it's really coming into its own. You got Smash Park across the street, so I can see why CHI Health wanted to be part of it. And now that the soccer fields are pretty much done, I know that they're waiting on some of the funding from the state to do a field house and tennis courts and some indoor parts of that. I think it's going to be a long time if and when we see the Natatorium, which was the 5 swimming pools. That was the original impetus for this. But I'll be really excited when they have an indoor component. They already have concession stands and restrooms and things like that, and they can play far into the fall season, given that they're turf fields.
Aren't we expecting at least 3 new hotels in that area over the next couple of years?
Yes. So you already have. I was involved in the Comfort Suites right next door. What's the one that's over by Kiewit's new buildings? Used to be PayPal. My Place. Across the street, there should be a Microtel. There's going to be a Home 2 Suites right next to Smash Park that's going up.
Oh, that's going to be a Home 2?
Yeah, and then flipping back over next to the Kiewit buildings, formerly PayPal, there's plans to have a Holiday Inn Express, which will go first, and then a Residence Inn. So you have a ton of hotel rooms, and when you're off it's the entrance in Omaha, basically, and you'll have this gaggle of hotels right there servicing all that.
Well, you already have quite a few hotels there, so that'll become like one of the hotel epicenters of the metro area.
And the convention center and hotels across the street, the Embassy Suites and what's that other one over there? Embassy Suites,
Courtyard,
and the Courtyard by Marriott. Those have always been really successful. I've got an office building I lease over there, and then you also have that 32 acres, which right next to Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, across from Costco, and then by Cabela's that is still yet to be developed. So we're getting more and more people there. I hope to see some apartments. There's the Edward Rose Apartments on the west side of the interstate there, and I hope to see more residential around that Southport area, and that's the last component.
Are you talking about the 32 acres to the west?
Yeah, I would imagine that there'll probably be about 15 acres of apartments eventually, depending on, unless someone takes it and makes an office or something there.
Makes sense. I mean, that's a good use for the land there. We're talking about kind of a triangular piece of land west of Cabela's and Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, right?
Yeah, it's not really triangular. It's
trapezoidal?
More, we'll call it trapezoidal. It's down that hill a little bit. It's got access from West Giles Road and unbelievable visibility. So I could see a sports and recreation. I could see hotel, water park, or something like that. But to my knowledge, it's still up in the air what it'll be.
Perhaps polygonal. But going back to this newly named CHI Health Multisport Complex, Nebraska, facility is expected to have annual economic impact of $9.9 million and draw more than 32,000 overnight visitors. So certainly a nice impact in the area. Well, shifting our attention to Midtown, Child Saving Institute, CSI, has held a ceremonial groundbreaking last week for a $46 million project that will more than double the size of its complex near Saddle Creek and Dodge Street. Now, CHI Health Center, or rather, Child Saving Institute, has been around for 131 years, helps kids, childhood development, mental health, all sorts of services for kids. Important stuff. The project is slated to be completed in 2025. Like I said, it will more than double the size of that complex. And it might, when you drive by it, when it's all said and done, might not jump out as dramatic and as big as it really is, because it's going to be surrounded by all these massive med center projects. And then to the west is that big 330 unit 5-story apartment building that's under construction. But that's a nice addition, privately funded, nice addition. They still are looking for a few $1 million to complete the campaign altogether.
That's a great site. It's a great mission, and it's one of of a plethora of child-focused, kid-focused, whether it's psychiatric that Children's Hospital broke ground on, or the other ones that you see. What's the one right on 72nd Street where Xerox used to be? I'm dating myself.
Not sure. Yeah, it's slipping. Completely Kids or no?
I know we all know
I'm
what
not
it
sure
is.
which one it is.
We'll come up. But what I'm saying is, all these services are great things, and will definitely be used.
It's going to be interesting. Say when that project is in full swing, right there on the southwest corner of Saddle Creek and Dodge. Immediately to the south of that, work has started on a credit union branch. Immediately to the south of that will be the 6-story UNMC administration building that you talked about last week. And then, like we said, just to the west is a 6-story apartment building. Also in that area, we know in about a year, construction will begin on the first phase of Project Next. And that's about $2 billion. So that whole area will be kind of a construction epicenter. At the time, it'll be kind of interesting to drive through there just to see how crazy
Well,
it is.
in addition to be serviced by the streetcar. 2026 is going to be huge for the urban core.
Well, yeah, because that's the year that the Mutual Tower opens, streetcar, so many of these other projects. I think even out at 72nd and Dodge, that's about when the new Central Library is supposed to open. Big year, 26.
Absolutely.
Well, let's do one last news item for this section. We got some progress on the South Side Terrace. Now, the South Side Terrace Homes is a public housing project, been around for a long time. The City Council last week made way for the first phase, $35 million first phase, in completely renovating that whole area. A lot of people don't realize that Southside Terrace is huge. 51 buildings altogether.
Wow.
About 1,200 people live there. The plans eventually call for, over the next 5 years, multiple buildings and about 700 new apartment units or duplex townhouse units. So big transformation in that neighborhood. If you're wondering where it is, go think about like 29th and Q Street and go just a little bit south.
So it's pretty much right next to the Kroc Center, right?
Yeah, right by the Kroc Center, really close to all the stuff that has happened on the Stockyard site, really close to the vibrant South 24th Street, old downtown South Omaha district. And so a lot of stuff is happening in that area. This first phase, which is scheduled to begin in January. They got to tear down a couple of the buildings first to make it happen, is going to be about a 5-level, 92-unit apartment building. So that'll be really nice. So there's going to be a lot of density in that area, but you're going to have housing units that are a hell of a lot nicer and certainly more aesthetically pleasing, and it should do wondrous things for that sub-community, that sub area of Omaha right there, and make it a lot more vibrant and deal with perhaps some crime issues that have been plaguing the area in recent years. So good move there, and pretty exciting to look forward to that sort of urban renewal. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up our news of the week, which, as always, is brought to you by Eagle Mortgage. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some new information in the residential housing market. And then we'll also talk about something that's not usually what we talk about on Grow Omaha, but I think you're going to find it pretty interesting. So stay with us. You're listening to Jeff and Trenton on the show, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center, along with D&M Roofing and Siding on News Radio 1110 KFAB. And welcome back to the show. Jeff Beals and Trenton Maggot at your service. We're brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center, along with D&M Roofing and Siding. And we want to really thank D&M Roofing and Siding for everything they do in the community. Not only do they do amazing work on your roof, whether it's your house or your commercial building, they also have a really cool program in which each year they identify a deserving veteran who has served the country and through circumstances could really use a free roof. And they provide a free roof for a veteran, and we're getting really close to D&M Roofing and Siding announcing who that recipient will be, their way of honoring the people who have served our country. Speaking of serving countries, I kind of wanted to share a story that I experienced earlier this week. A lot of you know that I do sales training and professional speaking all over the world. And I did a program in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, and this was for NAI Global. It's my biggest training client. NAI Global is a large network of independently owned commercial real estate companies all across the world. In fact, NAI NP Dodge, where Trenton and I are affiliated, is one of NAI Global's independently owned partner companies. So anyway, I went to this annual conference for the people who lead and own these NAI Global offices. It was in D.C., and there was a surprise attendee, someone I had met before in prior conferences but hadn't seen for a couple of years. His name is Vitaly, and he is the owner and operator of NAI Ukraine in Kyiv, Ukraine. And so Trenton, Vitaly, when the war broke out, his world was changed dramatically, like everyone who lived in that country. And so when the invasion happened, he made arrangements to send his wife and kids to England, where they would be safe. And one kid is in Texas going to college. And Vitaly had to shut down his company. So he put his, at least temporarily, put his NAI Global office on hold and joined the Ukrainian army as a 51-year-old machine gun operator. And so there he is, serving in the Army. And I asked him about joining the Army as a 51-year-old. He said, actually, the expectation was that anyone who's healthy, any man who's under 65 and was healthy would join the Army. And he said, I would rather die defending my country than be a slave to the Russians. And so as he was involved in the war, eventually it became clear to his commanders and superiors that he was a very talented businessman. And so he started taking on more and more responsibility. And now he's working in Kyiv, and he can actually live in his house that he hadn't been to in a very, very long time. And so it's just truly an amazing story. I actually spent probably about an hour one-on-one just talking to him and about the commitment and the ability to overcome adversity. He's been standing there and have seen buildings destroyed and people wounded and killed and this sort of thing. And so I share this story with all of our Gromaha listeners to, number one, remind you how fortunate we are. Number two, when you're feeling a great deal of adversity, remember there are people who are going through more, and you can use them for inspiration and motivation. And the other thing is, don't forget Ukraine. I think as we get caught up in what's going on in the world and the crazy politics in Congress lately, and then, of course, thinking as we should about the tragedy that has happened in Israel, don't forget about Ukraine. That's a pretty serious situation there, and they're working really hard. One other thing about my new friend Vitaly, Trenton, not only is he serving in the military and doing some really advanced things for the military right now, he has decided that while he's doing that, and even though the war shows no sign of ending anytime soon, he's going to reopen his NAI Global office in Kyiv and start doing real estate again. Not going to be easy, because every single person who worked for his commercial real estate company has either found a new job, moved to a different country to be safe, or is serving in the Ukrainian military.
That's an amazing story, and Vitaly is certainly a strong individual, and I happen to be descendants. My wife and I did 23andMe.
Oh, yeah?
And I figured that the Chinese had all of our information anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I found out, not a lot of surprise, but I am from 99.7% Ashkenazi Jewish, and my people come from West Central Ukraine.
Okay, but that part was a surprise because, as some Grow Omaha listeners know, you and I have known each other since we were kids.
Right.
I always thought your heritage went back to Russia.
Well, and they must have moved to Russia because my dad's parents, one was from Russia, the other one was from Belarus, which is kind of near each other, obviously. And so I have a lot of emotions, not only about what's going on in Ukraine, but also Israel. And so, yeah, it warms my heart to hear stories like Vitaly and how he feels so strongly about his country. And truth be known, we were scheduled to leave on the 28th to go to Israel.
For a vacation.
Yeah, for like 2 weeks. And minor inconvenience for us to not take that trip. And it's sad that we can't go, but at the same time, when I think about what people all over Israel, the Middle East are going through right now, especially the civilians, it's just a sad thing. And no matter what people think, we're lucky, and we can't take our freedoms in America and other countries for granted. And it really makes me feel sick when you see in the United States all of this hatred towards Israel and the Jewish people when it's really not warranted.
Yeah, when you see this level of sudden conflict that has erupted on the world stage over the last year and a half or 2 years, and you think about the conflict that now is more possible to erupt in the future because of what's happening in the world
expand right now.
Expansions. It is a reminder, as you just indicated, that we as citizens have a civic responsibility to work hard to maintain, perpetuate, and grow what we have here in this country. Certainly don't want to take.
Well, and also on social media, everybody seems to be quick to forward things or cut and paste or whatever. And I would just caution people to make sure that that what you're forwarding or what you're writing on social media, do some research and make sure, because your name is on that, and make sure it's whatever it is. Do your best to make sure that it's authenticated, and don't spread misinformation, whether it's good or bad. It needs to be accurate. And I realize this is an economic development and a commercial real estate radio show, but just like in Ukraine, when Vitaly goes back to recreate his commercial real estate office, it'll probably have a construction arm, because you can imagine how many square feet of office, retail, residential, everything else. A lot of it needs to be rebuilt, and it's sad.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because there are a couple of other NAI Global affiliated offices around the world that are working Vitaly, partly to help him out, and partly they want to have a piece of the future action of Ukraine, because if, God willing, this war ends within the next year, a couple of few years, there could be kind of like a miniature Marshall Plan there. And theoretically, Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, and the country as a whole, could be one of the, if not the biggest real estate development hotspot in the world for a couple of years. Let's pray that happens. Let's pray the war ends so it can have an economic boom.
It was a vibrant city, and it's a well-built city.
Yeah.
But when it takes constant shelling, and imagine going from working in a vibrant city to working for the army or the military, which either you had experience 20 or 30 years ago, and now you're going back, and everybody's uprooted.
Yeah.
And I have compassion for the civilians in the Gaza Strip, throughout Israel, the West Bank, even in Lebanon, and there's people that have no control over their lives, and it's really sad. And everybody should prosper. Everybody should have freedoms, and not. It's a real tough issue, and it's not simple. Some things are simple about, massacre is bad, and terrorism is bad, but I still have hope for the world.
Amen, brother. And we promise everyone we will go back to Omaha Growth and Development Talk after we break for the news here in the middle of the hour. You are listening to Grow Omaha, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding on News Radio 1110 KFAB. And welcome back to the show. Jeff Beals and Trenton Maggot at your service. Grow Omaha is brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding. Hey, if you are in the unfortunate accident, if you have an unfortunate accident as you're driving around playing bumper cars on Omaha's streets and highways, don't worry. You've got Dingman's on your side. 4 metro area locations. They do an outstanding job. Not only is the workmanship top notch, but the customer service is first rate as well. So let's go into our commercial real estate development spotlight of the week, which is brought to you by Noddle Companies. NoddleCompanies.com is where you can find them online, or you can just go stop by Exarban Village, or you can go by River's Edge. You can go by Builders District downtown and see some of their work. But Noddle Companies has been responsible as a full-service commercial and residential real estate development company. They've been responsible for a lot of headquarters developments in Omaha. The list includes HDR, Kiewit, Valmont Industries. So they do residential, they do corporate office, retail, but they create communities more important than anything else. And one of those communities that they've created is Exarban Village. And Trenton, that's where our news takes place this week for the Noddle Company spot. Backlot Tap House, very good restaurant, attached to Exarban Cinema, is going to be included in America's Best Restaurants. This is a television show. The television show travels the country visiting independent restaurants and just kind of feature them and show people where they should go eat. And they're going to film at Backlot here in the next few weeks, and it's going to be on TV. Of course, Backlot is famous for the Detroit-style pizza, which is so good.
Yeah, and I usually go to the one closer to our house at ACX, 204th and Q, but it's actually an expanded menu, I believe, and the ambiance is great as well. So congratulations to the Barstow family that soldiered through the pandemic and actually have 3 more locations around the country.
Yeah, it's. I typically go to the Backlot out west too because I live out west, and a lot of people are quite surprised how good the cocktails are at Backlot. And that is your commercial real estate development spotlight of the week, brought to you by Noddle Companies. Like I said earlier, just go to NoddleCompanies.com if you want to find more about that national Omaha-based real estate development company, or check out some of their developments around town. Well, we want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the market right now. And each quarter, NAI NP Dodge produces its Omaha metro area market report, in which it looks at office, retail, and industrial real estate. So just a couple of things here that you might find interesting. So Trenton, I'll just kind of tell it to you, and everyone can kind of listen in to what we have to say here, which is kind of what the show is all about. The office market in Omaha now, according to the report, is almost 49 million square feet. And of that, 1.3 million square feet is under construction, so it's going to get a little bit bigger here pretty soon. But of that 49 million square feet, vacancy rate is only 6.7%.
Yeah, and I do my share of office space, but lately I've been doing a lot more industrial, land sales, and investment sales. But I would say that when it comes to office, and my concern about that 6% or whatever you just said, the amount of space that is leased, tenants are paying rent, but it's on the market for sublease, or they would like to get out of their lease, was what the concern is.
You know what, along those lines, though, there's also a lot, I agree 100% with you, there's also a lot of that space that companies are just sitting on until the lease expires, and I think some of them don't realize that there are things that you can do as long as, the lease allows it or your landlord
call Trenton
cooperates.
Maggot at NAI NP Dodge.
Yeah, and before we get to that, things that you can do to dispose of some of that space and save yourself a little bit of money, and you should definitely give Trenton a call because he can coach you through it.
I think a lot of companies are wrestling with what they're calling like flex time now and core hours, and we need you to come in 2 times a week, and anybody that is of value to the company demands that they need to keep their private office. Not everybody, but most people are used to keeping a private office, and they're not there all the time, but they have their kids' pictures on the wall, and they have their artifacts and everything else. And so companies are wrestling, and I'm sure just like Mutual of Omaha is building this huge tower, what is it, 800,000 feet, I think? And they know that a lot of their employees aren't going to be there all the time. So do they get a temporary office? They get a permanent office? They'll say, I want to come in 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and they're good producers and everything else. And so office space, unlike retail and industrial, is really in a transformational period now.
A couple other market segments. Retail, there's 65.4 million square feet of retail space on the Omaha market right now. 4.5% of it is vacant, which is really healthy. 274,000 square feet of new retail space is currently under construction. And then there's the industrial sector. The industrial sector has long been the healthiest one in Omaha. There is 105 million square feet of industrial space here in town. 5.3 million square feet of new industrial space is currently under construction. But are you ready for this? Vacancy rate, only 2.3% of industrial space in Omaha is vacant, and frankly, that's a problem.
Well, and keep in mind that includes new buildings, Class A space with high ceilings, high cube space, docks and drives, and Class C 50-year-old space that probably isn't really usable. So we're tight. John Meyer and I just did a 10-year lease, 16,000 square feet.
John Meyer is one of your colleagues.
Yeah, in La Vista, 10-year deal, international company. It was on the market for $8 a square feet. It actually leased for $8.25 with 2.5% increases, and the tenant is paying for all their own build out and starting to pay rent before they even get their construction done. That doesn't happen all the time, but in a tight market, landlords can demand that. And I remember when the same space would have been $4.50 25 years ago. And so, yeah, there's industrial space. We didn't have this high cube warehouse. Opus is building a couple big buildings over in Council Bluffs, right on the I-29,
I think they're pretty much done.
Interchange, and I think they're pretty much full. You're seeing companies out west, R&R, and other companies building these high cube warehouses, and not just a lot of storage and for Amazon and places like that, but you're seeing sports types things like one of our sponsors, Cheer Athletics, has about 32,000 square feet in one of those because they needed the 32-foot ceilings. They needed the 50 feet span for the floors and all that. And then there's baseball and sports and all that kind of stuff. Everybody wants these big warehouses.
Well, we are also going to share a couple little updates about the Omaha residential real estate market. We'll do that in the lightning round, along with some of the restaurant and retail stuff that we have on the list here. So stay with us. You're listening to Grow Omaha, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding on News Radio 1110 KFAB. And welcome back to the show. Jeff Beals and Trenton Magid are here in the KFAB studio. We're brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding. It's time for your Turner Construction Lightning Round. That is when we talk about a lot of things in a short period of time, and we appreciate Turner making this possible. By the way, they are the construction contractor you want to call if you are going to do a project that is important for your business. So, if you want to do something, let's say you want to do something huge, like equivalent of $389 million worth of very important buildings on an Air Force base, you could call Turner for that.
Yeah, I know an Air Force base.
You know an Air Force base where that might be happening? Let's say you wanted to build billions of dollars worth of data center space at Highway 50 and Capehart Road.
What if I want my own private highway bridge?
you could talk to Turner about that. But not everything they do are mega projects, even though they can, and they have the resources and the knowledge and the expertise and experience for that. They do retail space build-outs, office build-outs, small projects all over town, medium projects all over town. The key thing is they do a very good job of it. You're going to have a hard time finding a construction contractor with the motivated team of people who work together and are very customer focused and the quality craftsmanship, expertise, and experience. So Turner Construction, highly recommend, and we thank them for making this segment possible. All right, Trenton, we've got a new restaurant taking over the old Julio's space at 192nd and Q Street. It's going to be called Circo, C-I-R-C-O, and Circo will be new American and contemporary Italian cuisine, and it looks like a November opening date. And
wow, that was fast.
Yeah, that is. So I'm glad to see something is going in there. I don't live terribly far from there, so I'm looking forward to going.
With the plethora of all the
on
Mexican restaurants opening up, including 11,000 square feet at Village Point, it's kind of nice to see an Italian restaurant.
Yeah. Not although you're making reference to Ancho and Agave, which is a fun place to go.
It absolutely is. But there's been so many Mexican restaurants open up, and I like Mexican.
Well, as exciting as it is to have Circo coming to 192nd and Q, we've got some restaurant closings to share with you this week. Sebastian's Southern Crab. They were located in Clock Tower Village, east of Westroads Mall. No more.
Sorry to say I didn't. They had good reviews, but sorry to say I didn't make it.
Yeah, I never did either. Perhaps that's why
they didn't get the Omaha account.
Yeah, because God knows restaurants want Trenton and Jeff there because
they always make us pay for them, though. You'd think that they would invite us. Or
some would say we have healthy appetites. But anyway, best wishes to the owners of that business. And then Site One Tap Room and Sunnyside Elkhorn are closing the west locations. Now, it's important to note that the other Site One Tap Room, and the other Sunnyside will remain open. It's just the West Elkhorn locations. So that's unfortunate that that's not working out. But I think you're going to see, frankly, Trenton, a little bit of restaurant closings tick up a little more frequent over the next few months just because of some economic things that are happening nationally. Okay, a yet-to-be-announced restaurant is coming to 6121 Maple Street in downtown Benson, a newly rebuilt building. We don't know what that restaurant is. We'll keep our eyes and ears open for you. We hope to find out soon, but there will also be in this newly rebuilt building a different tenant on the second floor, probably not a restaurant. Another piece of restaurant news, Dan Hoppen, who does an outstanding podcast, an outstanding podcast about restaurants. Food-focused. Yeah, we carry his podcast on growomaha.com on our podcast page. He reports that Saddle Creek Breakfast Club at Countryside Village is still planned, but it's just the opening date is not known yet. There still needs to be a lot of work to make it happen.
That's that corner right when you first pull in where Starbucks was.
Yeah, it was originally a Starbucks. Sand Point, the New England-style restaurant in the old Jack and Mary's space, 655 North 114th Street in Miracle Hills, opened yesterday. So we got to go over and try that sometime.
Yeah, I drove by there.
Let's get over there and try that sometime. Authentic You Salon and Studio is going into a building at 132nd and Cotner. That is in Old Millard. So it'll be about a 1,700 square foot space there. All right, we promised you a little bit of news about Omaha residential real estate, and this comes from our good friend Joe Finley from NP Dodge, who writes for the Grow Omaha newsletter. And Joe reports that U.S. News and World Report recently published a report, and it talked about the most undervalued markets to rent a home. 5 cities in the Midwest topped the list, with Omaha taking the number 1 spot. So it said basically that the rent-to-income ratio in Omaha is 23.66%. that's really, really low. Basically, if you start going over 30% rent to income ratio, you're stressed. You're financially stressed, according to government dictate, I guess. But Omaha only 23.66%. The national median is nearly 36%. The other Midwestern cities that were in the top 5 following Omaha were St. Louis, Cleveland, Minneapolis, and Oklahoma City. So be happy you live here. It's cheap.
That probably explains why CoStar had a report a couple months ago that Omaha had the highest amount of rent growth, about 5% for apartments year over year.
Yeah, and that rent growth residentially, 9.5% compared to a year ago, and we're still the number one most affordable among the big cities in the report. Well, that's it for this week. I hope everyone has a great weekend and a week to follow. I'm Jeff Beals.
And I'm Trenton Magid.
You've been listening to Grow Omaha, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center, D&M Roofing and Siding, and Turner Construction. We'll chat with you next week right here on News Radio 1110 KFAB at 9 o'clock a.m. If you like this video, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And remember, Grow Omaha is not just media. This is a mission. We are trying to build up Omaha and make it an even better place. We can only do that with your help. Share this video with your friends, neighbors, and family.